I'm Laura Stassi, and this is The Way We Live from Dating While Gray. Have you heard the term solo agers? It refers to people over 50 who live alone. They don't have romantic partners or anyone living close by to help them navigate potential issues. Some solo agers are aiming to do something about that. They're looking for rooms to rent from people in a similar situation, or advertising their own places to share. I found a Facebook group of about 31,000 men and women all over the US, seeking and offering what they call co-living opportunities. Other people pair up platonically with someone they already know.
I'm Kathy. I just turned 70 years old, so I'm excited about that.
Uh-huh.
And I retired from the federal government on my own at the right time. No editorial comments.
I am Debbie, and I am recently retired as of the end of 2024. I was in marketing for a nonprofit credentialing board in Virginia, and did marketing and printing and graphics and all of that fun communication stuff.
Debbie's longtime single, Kathy's a widow. Neither has kids. Turns out they were neighbors, but their friendship was sparked by a random encounter.
We've known each other 20 years. We just kind of tried to figure that out recently. We met at the nail salon.
No way.
You know, you get to talking to people. She had the appointment before me. I'd been going to this woman forever, and so had Kathy. And then we discovered that we lived in the same neighborhood. She lived about 3 blocks from me. So it was like we just became friends. She knew how to quilt. I wanted to learn how to quilt.
I was at the nail salon with my sister, and I said, I want to learn to play canasta before I retire so that I'll have something to do in retirement. And she said, I know how to play canasta, and I have a friend who will play. So we kind of decided, okay, next Friday we'll sit down and I'll teach you how to play canasta.
Oh, so you just made a plan right then and there.
Right then, yeah.
Friendships take a while to get, really up and running. But we did play canasta once a month, and then we did a little retreat. We went out into a friend of ours' home out in the countryside out in Loudoun County, and we learned to quilt. Kathy was gracious enough to teach both of us how to quilt. And then, we were both still working, so it's not like we had a lot of daytime to spend together. But we just kind of started doing things. We'd go to quilt shows.
Kind of like all the things my husband didn't want to do, kind of to tell you the truth. I started going to Florida for the winter time. And then unfortunately, my husband got dementia. And so I put him in assisted living, eventually in Virginia. And then I took off to Florida. So she was my eyes and ears in Virginia. And so that was, kind of yeoman duty, you getting the call at 9:00 at night on a Friday night saying, oh, he just fell. Can you go over to the place and pick him up or go over and help him? So things like that.
And then sadly, your husband died. So do you each remember a specific incident or event that made you start talking about wanting to live together?
COVID.
Oh, well, that's an interesting thing you said.
COVID was when I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to retire? What's that retirement going to look like? Because I was, 65 at that time. And so it was like, well, I think I better start thinking about it at some point.
She used to drive down to Florida with me so that I wasn't driving by myself. She said, when I go down there next time, I'm going to look for a place to live because I don't think I can afford to live in Virginia after I retire. And I said, well, if you're willing to build something, this is, in my mind, the trigger. If you're willing to build something, why don't we just do it together?
So the house that you were going to in Florida before this, was this a house you rented every year? Or was this?
No, it was a house my husband and I had bought.
Was it not set up in your mind for you and Debbie to share?
No, it was only 2 bedrooms, and we knew needed a craft room.
Okay.
So, and the bathrooms weren't fabulous. The important things in life.
I agree.
So,
Debbie, what was your response when she said this to you?
It was like, what a great idea, because when you look at the prices down here, even in 2020, I could have bought a small house. I could have absolutely sold my home and bought a small house and lived down here full time. But, it's really hot down here in the summertime, and I don't really like hot weather. So,
But initially you said, yeah, and then I'll live down in Florida and then you'll still snowbird. And I said, well, that's kind of stupid, because if you're going to live with me in Florida, why don't you just live with me in Virginia too? And so then you said, well, okay, I guess I could do that.
How did it all work itself out, detail-wise?
I would say we kind of started with, what do we want? Well, we wanted 2 master bedrooms. Well, that's hard to find in Florida. And then we wanted a craft room. We're both crafters. We both sew. We both do other things in the craft world. And we needed a guest room. So that makes it a 4-bedroom house. And then we decided, well, we can't share our bath. No one can share a bathroom with guests. So we have to have an extra bathroom. And so once we kind of got all those pieces together, we just started going and looking at custom builders in the area. We spent quite a bit of time doing that. And then once you start doing that, you have to start looking for land. So that part was all really distressing and took forever.
Were there any pressure points, like maybe you liked a certain cabinet and she didn't like the cabinet or the color scheme?
I'm going to let Kathy answer that question.
I was married over 30 some years. And so I always contend I had learned a long time ago when to cave in and when not to cave in. And I think, I hate to even say this, because I think both of us are pretty darn stubborn. However, both of us can be easygoing on things that don't matter to us. So I think that kind of made it easier. Things that Debbie really cared about, I didn't give 2 cares at all about. And things that I really cared about, she either masked it or she kind of just whatever, and it was a cave. So you just kind of figure out where you're going to fight your battles. But part of it could be because we're old and we've been around the block a few times and we've owned houses before. And in many ways, we have the same taste. Mine's more traditional than Debbie's. Debbie's is kind of really off the wall, kind of like.
Oh,
It is. She'll
Much
leave it
more
in
modern.
I will say, on behalf of all modern lovers,
a modern.
off the wall is not a synonym for modern.
Exactly, Laura. Thank you. We both had a house full of furniture. I mean, Kathy's house here in Florida had furniture, and we kept some of that and we ditched some of it. I mean, and I had to make really hard choices. I had a 4-bedroom house that I'd lived in for 20 years. And so when I sold my house in the summer of 21, oh my gosh, I probably got rid of 3/4 of what I had, because I knew it wasn't going to fit here, and there was no place for it in Kathy's Virginia house. That was the biggest transition, figuring out what I was going to get rid of, figuring out what Kathy was going to get rid of, and then loading it all up and bringing it down here and waiting for 2 years for the house to be built.
Wow. Did you all negotiate, like, how much time you were going to spend together? I mean, it's one thing to be friends, best friends, and it's another thing to live together 24/7.
There are times, being quite frank, that I'm sure I get on her last nerve. And there are times that she gets on my last nerve. And there are times that sometimes we just need away time from each other. But, I think part of it is because we're not 35 and we're not, unfortunately, maybe we just lead dull, boring lives, but we're not going out partying. We're not doing things like, heaven forbid, like washing the dishes at 1:00 in the morning. That was the issue the other day, as a matter of fact. I'm a bit of a night owl, and even though she's retired, she still goes to bed at 10:00 at night. So there's a little bit of an issue there that, probably it's going to continue, obviously, because she's not going to change and I'm not going to change either.
Mhm.
So,
And that's a good thing, too, I have to say, Laura,
Yeah.
because that gives each of us our own private time. I get up earlier than she does. I go to bed and read. She stays up later. So we each have a couple of hours of just total
it's just us.
off,
Yeah.
and we do spend a lot of time together.
Is there interest in romantic companionship, or is there room in your life, figuratively and literally, if one of you has romantic companionship?
No.
I don't really care. I
No, really not. I think I'm at the point where it's like, no, been there, done that. I also am in a situation here too where a very good friend of mine from Virginia who moved down here has dementia and is in
Mm.
assisted living now. And I'm his power of attorney. So I am dealing with taking care of him and his finances. So that's a huge undertaking at the moment.
So I want to ask each of you the best part and the worst part of a house share.
The best part is having someone to do things with. The worst part is probably having someone to do things with in many ways, because you go along with things you wouldn't normally do, like buying a bike. I mean, give me a break. I had said to her a long time ago, I'm too old to ride a bike. I could fall, I could hurt myself. I'm just not doing it anymore. And there I am buying a bike.
I think it sounds
I
like
can see
Debbie, whether you like it or not, it sounds like she might be actually very good for your health.
Well, yeah, she probably is. Way better than I'd be by myself. I know that.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think that companionship is probably the best part of it, that you have somebody to talk to, especially during these times when we want to rant and rave about what's going on in the world. We have someone who is a like minded person that we can talk to, and just to talk about things. We talk about all kinds of things. We're still learning about each other. I mean, we were old when we met, we were older. So there's still things we're learning about each other's pasts and about family relationships and things like that. And so we do have a lot to talk about. And when you live by yourself, you don't necessarily have that unless you reach out and find that. And I know from living by myself that you have to be the one who calls and you have to be the one who says, hey, let's go do this. And I was always the planner and the organizer and the get together person. And now I don't have to do that because I have Kathy.
In case you lost track of the house details, Debbie sold her Virginia home and Kathy sold the Florida house she owned with her husband. And now Debbie and Kathy are snowbirds, spending 6 months in the Florida home they co-own and 6 months in Kathy's Virginia home. So you'd think having a romantic partner means sharing space 24/7. Not necessarily. There's a trend called living apart together, or LAT. Some people say LAT. I talked about it with journalist Vicki Larson for a Dating While Gray episode. Vicki is the author of Latitude: How You Can Make a Live Apart Together Relationship Work.
Social scientists and sociologists in the United States are really starting to pay attention to it because they're actually seeing it as a new family form, and specifically, they're actually calling it LLAT, a term for those living together in later life. And what they're saying is that this LLAT, and I don't know how to pronounce that.
LAT.
Allows them to, quote unquote, redo gender in a way that they could not achieve in their previous marriages or relationships. And so that's really exciting.
So older women are the driving force, and it is because they don't want to necessarily replicate what they may have had in their traditional marriages the first time around, where they are primarily responsible for the house, or they want to be responsible for the house as long as it's their house, their stuff.
Yes. And it's not necessarily just that. It is also their sense of freedom, really, which becomes incredibly important past a certain age, especially if they've had children and have, raised them and taken care of them, and maybe also while taking care of, parents who were not doing well or siblings. So they're trying to avoid some of that caregiving that is often expected of women.
I think the first thing everyone thinks of is, okay, this costs a lot of money.
moving in together or having someone to share the expenses with is cheaper. There is no doubt about that. However, there are other costs besides financial. There are emotional costs, and you have to take those into consideration too. If you have to uproot yourself from your community, your friends, your healthcare providers, maybe your work, there's a big cost to be paid for that. We have in our head that relationship escalator or the romantic script. Well, you meet, you date, you fall in love, you become a monogamous couple, you move in together, kids, house, somehow a minivan shows up. And so that maybe works in your 20s and 30s, but if you've already done that, or even if you haven't, but you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and you've lived alone or you've lived with romantic partners, and you're not having kids, you don't have a script. You can create what you want.
Speaking of creative, I've interviewed couples who live maybe a few miles apart, maybe several states apart. Personally, the arrangement I find tempting to replicate is when your romantic partner is literally next door. Like the woman we called Evelyn in the One Love, Two Homes podcast episode. She built a duplex with her partner. He lives on one side, she lives on the other side with her two special needs grown kids.
We get to be close to each other, but not living in the same house. For me, there's nobody telling me what to do. Nobody who can complain about my housekeeping or the way I do things. And I have my own space. It belongs to me.
And how about Norman and Julie? For them, Home Sweet Home is a 3,200 square foot condo in the famed Watergate complex in D.C.
That's Watergate South.
Watergate South. And where's the hotel?
That's the hotel right there.
The hotel right there. Okay. And you're right near the airport. They
so
carved
you
it up
see-
into two apartments with an adjoining door.
This apartment, we're in the north wing.
Uh-huh.
Her apartment's in the south wing.
Okay.
So we have two different
After
ways
they
of
showed me
getting
around,
in.
I sat down with them to find out how they met in the first place.
It happened to be a dance place near where I was living at the time, which was Dunloring in Virginia,
So you both showed up at this dance thing separately.
separately.
Okay. And how long had you been divorced by this time?
Let's make it simple. Well, at the time I was still separated.
Okay. Your reaction, is this something you don't want to get into?
No, it's funny because I thought he was divorced, but he did not.
Well,
did not
okay.
dispel my
It's,
misapprehension.
I don't want to get into that story.
Yeah.
Okay. We won't get into it. But so you both showed up. Were you dancing regularly?
Yes, but I don't drive, so I have to depend on, a lift to some of these places. And we were both in our 50s then. And I was so jealous of people who met their partner through dancing. Like they had a guy who could lead. And I never could do that. And if I did have a boyfriend and they didn't know how to dance, when we'd start taking beginning ballroom classes, and that was like, I didn't need another beginning class. But I thought he had a long distance relationship because he doesn't talk much. So I thought he had a girlfriend back in New Orleans. So we were friends for like 6 months, which was great. So we did stuff as friends, which is probably why this is like my first serious relationship in like a long time.
When did it boom?
Yes, when did our...
Well, outside the Kennedy Center.
I know.
So I had probably smoked too many cigarettes. I really started getting nauseated outside the Kennedy Center. And I actually had to lie down on one of their concrete, walls that contains the plants.
This is getting embarrassing. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but
He's telling it like it
you
is.
want all the details?
Yes, I do.
I got so sick I threw up.
Oh.
So I was lying down on top of the concrete wall, really moaning and feeling really sick. And Julie came out early you didn't stay for the whole concert. So I said, that was, because Julie is very serious about the events she goes to, the theater and the concerts and so forth. So I thought that was pretty nice, that she just wasn't going to leave me out there for an hour and a half. And then, I went up to our house up here. It was the 9th floor, and the rest is history. That's
Yeah.
when it happened.
Tell me about the conversation that you're going to live together.
That was years later after that, right? Because that was like 2004.
I retired from my job in 2016, and I was living in Reston until then. So we spent about, I don't know, almost 10 years, with her in D.C. and me in Reston.
Just commuting back and forth. Did you
Yeah.
come out here or did she go there? Or
I mostly came here.
because you drive? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she liked her apartment better than mine.
Because I had never been in a relationship that worked for a long time, I was happy to see, oh, well, when it's the right person and the right time, he said, okay, I feel very comfortable. This is it. This is the one. So that was established, and that was cool. And then I said, we should live together, but like next door neighbors.
Did that feel a little weird to you when she said, hey?
No, it made perfect sense to me. I mean, I would have liked that arrangement when I was living with my wife.
I want an adjacent apartment. So that was the goal.
Okay. And did you look in other buildings besides this one?
No.
She was in 914, in the apartment next door. She was trying to get the lady to sell it. That was the first possible solution.
Uh-huh.
When that didn't work out, this place became available, I guess, and took a look at it, and the architects looked at it and said, yeah, you could put a wall up. And
Right.
So okay, now I'm going to get all in your business. Did you buy one unit as a couple?
No, I bought it.
Okay, so you bought it, and then did you sell to Norman? or-
No.
Okay. Oh, well, I mean,
He pays a little bit. We've got monthly kind of co-op fees. It's a co-op.
uh-huh. So what you're saying is you bought the apartment, and then you as the homeowner decided to carve out a second apartment.
we don't have a lease document or anything like that.
Yeah, what do they call you? Are you a resident? What are you?
I think, what is who coming?
They have, names like, do you vote?
I'm registered
For the
voter.
board?
Oh, no, I don't have any ownership stake.
But they don't like long-term guests. I mean, you can't have a guest here for years. They have to, if you're going to walk in every day and have a key to the apartment, then you got to go through something with the
Well,
board.
I had to get letters of reference.
To live here long term.
Yes.
Does it ever make you feel financially precarious that you don't have any ownership stake and you also have a grown child?
Yeah. Well, she's on her own, and I have, fairly significant retirement income. It's not huge, but it's certainly, I can live well within its limits. And I don't know how many more years I'm going to be here in this green earth, but I think I have enough to make it
Yeah.
without any real concern.
Okay. And I have to ask this. What happens if Julie goes first?
Oh, that's in my will.
She has a will. I don't know if I would be so inclined to live in the Watergate or not. I haven't really given it much thought. I do like certain aspects of it, being close to the metro and being able to walk to a lot of places without much trouble, and being very close to Virginia via the Roosevelt Bridge, which I still have friends there and I still do things there. But as Julie mentioned, the monthly fee is substantial, and I don't know, I guess I would start working in that when it happened. I don't have any plans. Is it in the will that I have to stay here, though?
No, you just get the apartment.
Well, it seems and again, you seem like a very nice guy, but this seems really generous of you.
She's very generous, extremely generous, very giving.
Cheap and generous at the
She's
same
cheap
time.
with herself. Well, I don't know what I call it. Cheap. She's frugal, really. She doesn't indulge herself in a lot of things, but she will help a lot of people, relatives, friends who are in need.
Do you all have a routine about how much time you spend together or where you're
Mm.
eating and
Yeah,
We don't eat together.
right. Don't eat together. We eat in restaurants together.
Only with other couples.
We don't really have that much in common in terms of specific likes. Like Julie likes theater. I'm kind of lukewarm toward it. I like playing the piano, classical music. I like salsa. She liked West Coast swing. But it doesn't seem to bother. Certainly doesn't bother me because we each have the freedom, I guess, or ability to pursue our interests and still have time for each other.
I think we both like privacy, so neither of us would, want to share an apartment. And if it weren't for the cats, we wouldn't probably see each other half as much as we see each other.
I think I see you at least 4 or 5 times, 6, maybe even 10 times. I come over here.
A day or a week or a
A
month.
day. Well, the best part is that I'm living with somebody that I really get along well with and I love. And I think the first few years we might have had a few blow-ups at each other. But I'm perfectly comfortable with her, with Julie.
At one point, I felt so comfortable with Norman. I said, maybe we should get an apartment, the two of us together. And Norman said, if I left a dirty dish in the sink, would that be okay? I go, no, that would drive me crazy. So he said, okay, we'll keep it this way.
thanks to Julie and Norman and everyone who shared with us. For photos plus more information on all the topics presented, check out the bonus content page of datingwhilegray.com. This is a Dating While Gray special with audio production and mix by Steve Lack Audio. I'm Laura Stassi. Thanks for listening. The Way We Live is distributed by APM, American Public Media.